Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion was a failure. Let's face it. It's unpopular with the public and almost never has a line. And King's Dominion's attendance has not really grown since its addition. Intimidator 305 was supposed to be a big hit at King's Dominion, just like Millennium Force was at Cedar Point. Instead, King's Dominion got Intimidator 305, which in my opinion is a flop. This is Intimidator 305, a roller coaster failure. I-305 starts off with a, you guessed it, 305-foot climb up the lift hill. Instead of using a traditional chain like most roller coasters, Intimidator 305 utilizes Intamin's cable lift system. This is the same lift system found on Millennium Force at Cedar Point.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that guy yelling at you to start your engines.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
Okay, that's enough. Now don't even think about it.
Gentlemen!
No, not again. You then plummet down a 300-foot drop. Unfortunately, when I visited King's Dominion, Intimidator 305 was closed, so I did not have the opportunity to ride it. But I will do my best to describe the ride experience based off the POV and other people's reviews. You then enter Intimidator 305's quote-unquote blackout turn. This turn is notorious for pulling an excessive amount of G's. Not unsafe amounts, but it did cause some people to gray out or black out. This is where it got its nickname, the blackout turn. The word was spread that the turn caused people to black out, scaring away many members of the general public from riding the coaster. This one element, in my opinion, is the reason why Intimidator 305 failed so bad. It was way too intense for the average member of the public, and that's what scared them away from this ride. King's Dominion should have gone with a similar first turn of the one on Millennium Force that I'm showing you now. This turn would have pulled less G's and would have made the ride more enjoyable for everyone. Us enthusiasts may really enjoy the intense ride, but most members of the general public do not want to ride at such an intense coaster. Back to the layout. You then enter a massive airtime hell where you get some decent flitter airtime, but it's really not that impressive. You then do a quick rapid transition, then enter into your first set of twists. These are similar to the ones found on Maverick, and they are really intense whippy elements that most of the GP do not really enjoy. You then enter a trimmed airtime hell that I think I've heard just about every enthusiast complain about. Like, literally, everyone. You then enter another rapid transition and head into another rapid twist. This twist is very similar to the others and is very whippy. You then rise up into the final brakes with one last snap. Overall, Intimidator 305 is an intense and whippy coaster from start to finish. In my opinion, it makes perfect sense why the GP do not enjoy this coaster, which is sadly the main reason why this coaster, in my opinion, is a failure. Now that we've run through the layout, I want to tell you a couple reasons why I think Intimidator 305 was a flop. Reason 1. It was overly intense and the GP did not like it. And the GP are the main moneymakers for a park. It's important for the GP to enjoy the coaster because the GP are the majority of the people riding the coaster. Reason 2. The infamous blackout turn. For most people, this element is just way too intense. Plus this quote blackout turn caused much negative publicity to be spread about King's Dominion and I-305. Many members of the GP heard about this and didn't want to ride the coaster, scaring even more people away from this coaster. Reason 3. Intamin. You may be shocked by this, but I do think Intamin is part of the problem. Cedar Fair asked Intamin to design the biggest, baddest coaster in the East. I-305 was intended to one-up Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. By the way, Busch Gardens Williamsburg is about an hour away from King's Dominion, and is King's Dominion's main competition. I believe that Cedar Fair went with a B&M Hyper, they would have found much more success here than with I-305. Said B&M Hyper would have brought in lots of crowds and money for King's Dominion, and would have helped the park out more in the long run. I've heard that Cedar Fair originally wanted to put in a hyper coaster, but opted for I-305 because Apollo's Chariot was only an hour away. This would have led two very similar rides close to each other, and Cedar Fair thought that it would be better to one-up Apollo's Chariot by adding a Giga Coaster. Reason number 4. King's Dominion's placement of Intimidator 305. I-305 is placed well off the beaten path. You have to go to the very back of the park to find it. If King's Dominion had placed the coaster closer to the front entrance, the ride would be more popular with the general public because it would be easy to access. Because most GP don't go out of their way to find a certain coaster. They just ride whatever coaster is near them. Reason number 5. King's Dominion itself. King's Dominion is definitely a mid-tier park when it comes to size in the Cedar Fair chain. I believe it brings in about 2 million guests a year, while other larger parks like Cedar Point and Kings Island bring in well over 3 million a year. I think that if Intimidator 305 was put in the bigger parks such as Cedar Point, Kings Island, or Canada's Wonderland, because there would have been a larger pool of riders who would be willing to ride such an intense coaster. This would lead to more people riding the coaster, which would in turn make the coaster much more successful for the park. This may be a controversial opinion, but I think Intimidator 305 would have done much better at a bigger park, like I said before. I just think King's Dominion was not the right choice for Cedar Fair to put such a massive coaster in there. Which brings me to my sixth and final reason. Cedar Fair. Cedar Fair is partly to blame for choosing such an intense coaster to put in at this park. Cedar Fair is a relatively conservative company, and I think they took a risk here and got burned. In fact, Intimidator 305 was one of the reasons why Cedar Fair currently does not work with Intamin. I really do hope Cedar Fair and Intamin get back to good terms with each other, because I really enjoy Intamin coasters. They're super intense and fun. To summarize, Intimidator 305 was a roller coaster failure. Cedar Fair and Intamin both made poor choices, which ultimately led to the coaster's failure. I think Cedar Fair and the amusement park industry as a whole learned a valuable lesson from Intimidator 305. Sometimes bigger, badder, and more intense is not always the way to go. For example, Twisted Timbers is much smaller than Intimidator 305, but is far more popular. In fact, Twisted Timbers is my favorite coaster at the park. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate each like and subscriber greatly. And if you know anyone who would be interested in watching this video, please make sure to share it with them. It helps the channel immensely. Also, please check out my Intimidator 305 parody. The link will be in the description below. So, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.